everybody, it's Romania Black, and it's the rule of 8. It's the rule of 8 for Cherry Magic. If you are unfamiliar with my channel, I have to explain this every time, but if we have a series that is 11 to 13 episodes, usually the 8th episode is a special episode. It usually is either a transition episode that's transitioning to the last act, or it's just a wild episode where things are happening as we're finishing act 2 of the series or season, but things always happen in the 8th episode. It's the rule of 8. I can count on one hand the amount of times that is not held true. Actually, it was like 2 fingers, but every other time, the rule of 8 always wins. Every time. It's always a good episode, and I'm super excited about it. So yes, things have been going on with Adachi and Kurosawa. They just went on a date. It did not go as Kurosawa planned, but it did not go badly. I'm glad Adachi has stepped up and has been vocalizing what they expect out of said date and all of that. So that's very good for Adachi. I have a couple comments before we get started with this episode. Anime Annie, back in episode 5, says the term Adachi uses with Rokaku, these 2 comments are actually kind of related to Rokaku in a weird way, that I had to look up as it's slang I had never come across before, is Ryuju. It does mean normie, as Crunchyroll has translated, but it could also be translated to a person who is satisfied with their real offline life. Considering it's about him dancing in high school, the Western equivalent would be Adachi considering Rokaku to be a jock. And I kind of like that. I like the idea that Rokaku is so comfortable with himself, which kind of bleeds into Sunspot's comment for episode 6, that says Rokaku thought long and hard and came to the one and only obvious conclusion, of course. He's the center of the universe. I love this idea that Rokaku believes he is his own protagonist of the story, which kind of made me think about it. And I replied back to their comment with this, that it's really interesting because Fujisaki and Rokaku are the 2 office mates that are watching this romance between Adachi and Kurosawa unfold. Fujisaki views Kurosawa and Adachi as like the protagonists of The Office, and she's kind of following along their love story, as it were. Whereas Rokaku thinks he's the protagonist, and they're all just like helping him and mentoring him. So it's fun to see Fujisaki and Rokaku in this story have very different ideas of how the storyline is going. I really like that. But yeah, I have been in love with where this series has gone. I have been in love with Tsuge and Minato's storyline, with Adachi and Kurosawa. I'm super excited to see what we're going to get in the Rule of 8. Someone had commented asking if I would keep reading the manga after this series was over. Look, I, as everyone else, would love to have a season 2, but I have a sneaking suspicion, as I said last week, that this is going to be one of those like manga bait series where they want you to read the manga. I've been wrong before. I'm not opposed to reading the manga for Cherry Magic, but I don't think I could immediately commit to it on like a week by week basis once the show is over. It's probably going to join my never ending series of series that I keep up with. But I'm not opposed to like every month or so reading a new volume if people are going to read along with me. But yeah, I'm excited. So I have my tea, I'm ready to go, and we're going to see what old Cherry Magic gives us. So I hope you all enjoy episode 8. I'm so excited for it. But we are going to start episode 8 of Cherry Magic, and we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. The Rule of 8 has yet to let me down. I tell you, if it is a series that is 11 to 13 episodes, the Rule of 8 is not going to let you down, and it did not this time. No. Oh, I love this series. I love this series so much. I am mad at myself for taking this long to get into this series. This series is going to hurt future BL if they can't live up to the standard that has been set by Cherry Magic. Oh my gosh. Because I was talking about it by the time you all watch this episode come out on Patreon and most certainly YouTube, I will have already had a live stream where I was talking about another series that's aired on this channel. And I don't want to spoil too much about that series, but if you go back to the live stream on June 29th, 2025, I'll probably be talking about it in that live stream. But there are aspects about BL and about romance in general, but what I love about BL is they explore a lot of tropes in romance, and they're able to explore it in a sense of the two love interests being on equitable terms. Because I've read, believe it or not, I've read a lot of heterosexual romance novels. And one thing that always kind of frustrated me that I've talked about in other series is that a lot of times the female character, even when it's written by a female author, which is frustrating, even when it's written by a female author, the female character oftentimes is not equitable to the male love interest. And by what I mean by equitable is like in terms of their power dynamics, in terms of where they stand in the relationship. And I'm just like, and maybe some women want that, but that is not me. And that's kind of why yaoi and BL drew me in, and why GL draws me in too, because I'm not attracted to women, but I've watched enough GL now, like Bloom Into You and some other series like Morning Glory, that I'm like, okay, I get it. But the idea of with same-sex relationships in romance is because there is not that societal gender structure of power and authority levels and dynamics at play, because they are both of the same sex, the power dynamic is a lot more equitable, and there's a lot more give and take and discussion and communication between the two love interests than I found in heterosexual romance. And that's what's so refreshing about BL is, oh, these two partners come at it from equatable circumstances. Now, I have watched series where the two romantic interests are on equitable terms. There's a whole shelf of Psychopaths right behind me if you want to get into that series, and it's not even a romance genre, but still, the two characters that you're like shipping mainly together, they're equitable. Watch that series. But anyway, what I love about this series that's kind of spoiling me, I think, for some other BL or other romance in general, is that they talk it out. There is not this miscommunication bullshit of, oh no, and they make you think for a second that there's gonna be. They make you think that it's gonna be, and that's what's genius about it, is that they know what you're expecting. They know what you are expecting as the audience member. They're like, oh, you think we're going to do this and it's going to be a lot of hot trash, right? Actually, no, we're going to solve this like rational human beings. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you. It's just so refreshing, because I get some people, like I said, to go back to what I was saying, the series that I would talk about in that live stream has some toxic tropes in it. There's a lot of good in that series. There's a lot that I love about that series, but there are some toxic tropes that now that I've seen this series, I'm like, we didn't have to do that. We could have solved that problem instead of dragging it out. And I know some people, you know, romance is like comedy. It's very subjective. Everyone likes their certain tropes. Everybody has certain things that they find like some people are like, they eat angst up like it's a burrito. They're just like, give me the whole thing. Like they're just going to eat it up, you know, and gobble it down. Some people want bad endings. Some people are masochists and want to be strung through the mud with angst. And some people aren't. Some people like really fluffy things and they don't want any spice at all. They're like, no, thank you. No spice. We're good. I just want fluff. Some people want just like the most hardcore thing possible. Some people like Omegaverse. It's just like everybody has different likes, different kinks, all those things. My thing that I don't like is miscommunication, especially when it is done for the author's convenience. And because I'm an English teacher, because I write, because I've done these things, I can spot it. Like some people may not spot it. Some people, it just, maybe they're not inclined to know the tricks of the trade of what that author is doing. But I'm like, I know what you're doing. This is a plot convenience, or it's like something like that, you know? And then it's frustrating. So, because you're like, you look at that author and go, you did this on purpose. And it's like, you know, you can just spot it. But here, they actually go through it and sort it out, and it's really well done. So let's dive into this episode, because I've ranted for 6 minutes. So a month has gone by since their date. And the one thing I appreciate about this show, again, there's not like needless drama where there doesn't have to be, right? Because I think everybody at work kind of knows that Adachi and Kurosawa are a thing. Or if they don't know, I like that when they're at work, they stay professional, because that is really hard, right? Like, I've seen office romances go down the tube. And when it does, like, I'm currently working with someone whose spouse and them are getting a divorce, but they work at the same school. And it is very awkward, because when you work in the same place, you're around each other all the time. And even though they're in different departments, we still interact, like coworkers interact. You have departmental meetings where you interact. Like, it's just super awkward from my perspective, because I work with both of them. And it's so awkward because you don't want to take sides, because you don't know the full story from either of them, because you're an office worker. It's not that personal for you, but you have to sit there and have conversations with them. And it's like, and it's super, super awkward, because you want to be professional, but then it's like there are people taking sides and all of this. It's just, I could see why people want to avoid it, because it could be a hot mess. And I'm like, well, what do we do? But then I've seen people that work together that are married that it's great. So, it's just, and then you have people that say it's like their work wife or their work husband, and they're just like besties at work, but they're each have their own individual personal lives. There's a couple that work in the same department at my school. Again, they call themselves work wife and work husband. They are not romantically or sexually attracted to each other at all, but they're like platonic besties, and they each have their own spouse. And it's just, it's fun because everybody kind of knows it. It's like, oh, I thought they were married when I started working there. I was like, is that your wife? And he was like, oh no, we're just friends. And it's like, okay. So it's kind of like what Kurosawa assumes Adachi and Tsuge's relationship is, but at the same workplace. So I like that Adachi questions whether or not he should keep the secret of him being able to read minds to himself, or whether he should tell Kurosawa. And one thing I like right off the bat that Adachi does is he says, is it really okay for me to keep dating him while keeping this secret? Because it's not just a secret of like, oh, I have this fetish or this kink or whatever, or something he's not comfortable telling him because they just started dating. I mean, he's been reading his mind, which is invasive of Kurosawa's privacy. And Adachi himself says that if that happened to him, he'd be really repulsed by it. So I love that Adachi takes the time in this episode to break down how do I not want to tell Kurosawa because I'm afraid he'll leave me, because I would leave somebody that did that to me? Or is there some other reason? Or why am I doing this? Or what should I do? Or is it right for me to do this? Like, the fact that he questions what the right answer is and works through it in this episode is why I like his character so much, because it's very relatable. We all would be probably asking similar questions, right? I'm watching another series where you can do it either way. I'm not saying it's not effective to have a character like shy away from it if it's played up the right way. Like, I'm watching The Apothecary Diaries as I'm watching this series. And in The Apothecary Diaries, one of the main characters is in constant denial of their affection towards the love interest. And they constantly are like, we're just not going to talk about it. But it's played off as a joke, so it works. But here, I'm glad Adachi's like, I'm just not going to talk about it. I'm glad he's not like that, right? So I don't know what this company does. I think that's part of the joke, is that, whenever you have companies or office spaces in manga or anime, you're like, what do they do? Because here they're like making gym equipment. And I'm like, what are we doing? I'm like, is that what we do? Is that what these people have been meeting about, is for gym equipment patents? Like, what? I will say, the little board with the ball underneath of it, it's a core board. It's a balance board. I honestly need to invest in one of those, because I used to take a class. It used to be at night, and then the person that ran it, she stopped teaching it at night, which was sad because I could get off work and go to this class. But it was about like core strength training, which was a lot of fun. So I knew exactly what that was when he brought it out, which is fun. So they need volunteers on July 3rd. So July 3rd, does that make Kurosawa a Cancer? What is that? July 3rd horoscope. What is it? Yeah, it is a Cancer. Okay, interesting. Yeah. Okay, and then they said March 21st. Ooh, March 21st zodiac would be, oh, it's still an Aries. Adachi being an Aries is so interesting. So I want to look up now Aries and Cancer compatibility. Let's do that, right? Let's see that. Let's see. Okay, I want to go to like a legit site where I want to go that has all the things. We want to go to like an astrology. Come on now. Astro Talk, you going to give us some good stuff? I want to go to like, where's astrology's website? I want to go to like the legit one. Okay, astrology.com. Let's go. Aries and Cancers love compatibility. It's the ram and a crab. Oh, interesting. When Aries and Cancer come together in a love affair, it is truly a case of opposites attracting. Oh, okay, let's read this. Let's go this. Aries is bold and impulsive, while Cancer is sensitive and emotional. Well, Kurosawa would definitely be sensitive and emotional. I could see that. I could actually see Adachi as being bold and impulsive. It was bold of him and courageous of him to come out with his confession, and it's bold of him to be using his ability with Kurosawa. And also, he is kind of impulsive. As soon as he hears something, like whenever he touched Fujisaki for 5 seconds, he was like, oh my God, she has a crush on me, rather than waiting and hearing it out. So yeah, he is kind of impulsive. Aries can be emotional too, but in a fiery, impetuous way that can sometimes overwhelm Cancer. I could see that because Adachi got really overwhelmed by the date and everything and was getting in his own head and everything. So I could see that. Yeah. While Cancer usually prefers to take their time with relationships, Aries' whirlwind approach can be thrilling. Interesting. I don't know if that would describe Adachi as much, but in turn, Aries might find Cancer's emotional depth appealing as it balances their straightforward bluntness. I mean, Adachi is kind of blunt. I could see that. Troubles may arise if Cancer's mood swings or Aries' aggression becomes hurtful. Luckily, Adachi is not too aggressive, and Kurosawa doesn't have crazy mood swings, so that's probably a good thing. Both partners need to listen to each other and recognize they're coming from different perspectives to achieve a shared goal. That is literally this episode. Literally, this episode is that sentence. So, okay, Cancer is a sign of home, while Aries is the sign of self. Oh, a great dynamic between these two that is both fiery, fiercely protective of their loved ones. Ooh, Cancer uses their crab shell to shield themselves, their family, and their partner when danger is near, which is Kurosawa and what he's done, while Aries acts like a brave knight in shining armor, which he did for Kurosawa when he came to him on the bench. Okay, cool. Nice. Cancer provides Aries with emotional security and a happy domestic life. Well, he was cooking for him, getting him the pajamas, all those things. However, they might idealize their Aries partner or become overly possessive, which can grate on the independent Aries. That is so true. Luckily, Adachi has been able to use his ability to avoid that happening, right? So Aries can help by reassuring Cancer that they are loved and cherished. This episode. Additionally, Aries would benefit from listening to Cancer's advice. As the crab operates intuitively, they can help Aries avoid rash decisions caused by their lack of planning. Oh my God, that's literally every time Adachi has had the inkling to do something, and then he's listened to Kurosawa and figured out his real thoughts and been like, oh, never mind. That's literally that. All of that. Oh my God. So yeah, Aries is ruled by Mars, while the emotional moon rules Cancer. Mars is the god of war and pushes Aries to tackle every challenge head on, which appeals to Cancer's emotional nature. Cancer often internalizes their feelings, while Aries helps them express this intense feminine energy. The moon, which controls the tides, quietly affects all life, just as Cancer works behind the scenes while Aries charges into action. Cancer's sentimental nature can teach Aries to slow down and appreciate life rather than always rushing to the next adventure. This is great. Okay. Aries is a fire sign and Cancer is a water sign. The combination can work beautifully if they collaborate, blending emotion and action to achieve their goals. Cancer helps Aries to slow down and be gentler, while Aries encourages Cancer to come out of their shell. Oh my God, this is just like just checking off boxes. But Cancer can sometimes be emotionally pushy, and too much can dampen Aries' enthusiasm. On the flip side, too much fire can cause water to evaporate, leaving Cancer feeling emotionally exposed. Honest and open communication is the key to maintaining balance in this relationship, which thankfully is what they've been doing, which has allowed them to kind of have this balance, right? So nice. I love this. It says, what's the best aspect of their relationship? Once they realize they're on the same team, the combination of fire and water works beautifully. Aries is out there grabbing attention, which doesn't seem to fit Adachi, but while Cancer provides support from behind the scenes. Each partner's ability to supply what the other lacks makes this relationship balanced and fulfilling. I'm all here for this. Yes, please. Yes. So, yeah. That literally describes their relationship so far in this series. Good job, mangaka, for thinking that through. So July 3rd is Kurosawa's birthday. And Adachi's like, I've never gotten someone a birthday gift before. So what do I do? Also, the idea of Kurosawa being like, hey, I'm still going to be 262 days older than you for the time being until my birthday and all that. That's super cute. I like that. I like him kind of teasing Adachi, and Adachi's like, why are you teasing me? Just let him work. Let him cook, Adachi. Let him go. I do share the sentiment of getting gifts for people, especially if you're interested in dating them. I will say I've not really gotten anybody. I've never dated someone long enough to get them can I say that? Yeah. I've only dated someone long enough to give them a Christmas gift, and then I gave them a Valentine's gift, and then they ghosted me. So it was during COVID, so it was a bad time. But yeah, I'd gotten them a Christmas gift. Their birthday was in September, and we had just started talking around that time. So I didn't give them a birthday gift because it had literally been like we just met. But I did get them a Christmas gift, and then I sent them something for Valentine's Day, and then it just fizzled out from there. So I was like, I don't know what I did. Apparently it was too much. But there is a pressure there. Like, what if the gift is too much? What if it's too little? What do you do? And I will say, to Adachi's credit, because Kurosawa kind of laments, like, why is Adachi, so casual and seems like himself around his friends, but he's supposed to love me and he seems more like reserved. Why is that? And I can absolutely understand where Adachi is coming from. It's the idea of, well, when you're with your friends, there's nothing really at stake of losing them. They're your friends. So you get them a gift and that them enough, they like the gift. And you don't have to worry about them thinking it's too much or too little or, because they're your friend. At the end of the day, you're not their partner. You're not romantically with them. So you can be yourself and it's fine and they accept you for it. Romance adds another level to it where it's very easy, especially early on in the relationship when you're not like on the same level or you're on the same wavelength, of worrying that if I take this too far or if I mess up or do something wrong, they're going to leave me. And I won't have that love that I am wanting to cherish anymore. So it does put a higher stake and pressure on getting that gift. So I like that Rokaku's like, hey, reach out to your friends, get him to come along. He still thinks he's like the protagonist of the story. And Adachi's like, oh shit, I got to get him a birthday present. What do I get him? Now, he says Kurosawa seems particular about what he'd like. And I could see why Adachi would think that after the date they went on where Kurosawa had every little minute point planned out. That would make sense. To me personally, I think Adachi could walk up to him with a macaroni drawing and with like glued on macaroni pieces and been like, here you go. And he would frame it like it was in the Louvre. Like, I think that he would not care what Adachi got him. It would not matter. He loves him so much. It doesn't matter what he gives him. And he has heart eyes every time Adachi's around him. So, but Adachi wants it to be a good gift. So he's like, I'll just use my abilities to see what he needs, and that's how he finds out that Kurosawa lost his earphones. And he's like, I can get that. I know what earphones are. That'll work perfectly. He's like, that would be a great gift. And then I like that Kurosawa's like, he's so cute. I can see everything that he's doing. And she's like, oh God, I don't know if I need to be listening too hard to this. It's hilarious. Meanwhile, Fujisaki is just sitting there like, oh, I could keep eating this forever. She's like, we are feasting, no crumbs. This is great. She's like, she is living for all of this. Meanwhile, I love the focus we get on Tsuge. In this episode, Tsuge's relationship's going great. Off screen, him and Minato have hit it off. Like that one conversation he had with Minato about seeking his dream and pursuing it, like that did wonders for him. They are having a great time. Their relationship is going swimmingly. He hasn't confessed that he loves Minato, but I mean, Tsuge, it should be pretty obvious that Minato probably knows you're into him. And it should be pretty obvious that Minato is into him back. I mean, I want them to have like a confession in this episode. I want them to like confess and get that relationship out in the open because I think it needs to be. But I mean, come on now, y'all. But yeah. He's like, I really want to see Minato dance, but I feel out of place. I think maybe he feels out of place because he's holding like a camera, old man, instead of a damn phone to film on. But we find out Minato wanted him to come with the camera to take some photos of him for material, and the bouncer gets it confused and is like, are you taking photos when you shouldn't be? And Minato's like, no, he's an author I know. And then he's like, well, why doesn't he just, he's like, I brought him here because he wanted to gather material. And he's like, well, if he wants material, then why don't you try actually dancing? And like, Minato's like, that has nothing to do with him gathering promotional material for me. He can't dance. He's not that kind of guy. Can I say that as much as I love Kurosawa and Adachi, they have my heart and soul. The dynamics on screen of Tsuge and Minato scratch an itch with my typecasting for BL. If Fujisaki could see this on display, girl would be having AO3 fanfic night writing sessions over this, because the height difference, the dark hair and the blonde hair, the opposite personalities, the fact that like you have the big, strong, burly guy with who's hot without his glasses. He has a she's all that moment. And then Minato, who is like the small framed, but like athletic, fiery other half. It is just like checkbox of all of the tropes. I just like, yes, please. I almost want Tsuge, like, I want them both to be verse because I think I could see it both ways. I really could see it both ways. I'm sure Tsuge is the top, but I could see it both ways. I could see him being open to both. You know, for writing research purposes, he needs to experience both so that he can, you know, for his smut, have the most experience to write from as possible. Yes. But I also like the fact that he's like, no. He's like, I don't want to fight. He's like, I did come all this way. And he's like, no, if I can't accept this challenge, then who am I as a man to like go after Minato? So he's like, no, I'm a real man. I'm going to take these glasses off. And then he promptly sprains his ankle. And for a second, I thought they weren't going to show us the dance moves. Oh, no, they do. They are as bad as we would think they are. I said it in the reaction, but I'll say it here. There's a part of me that would be Adachi in this series, but I honestly think I'm Tsuge. Maybe I'm like a mixture of Adachi and Tsuge, but as far as the dance moves goes and being like, yeah, I can do it, and then failing immensely at it, I think I hit the nose with Tsuge there. He's like, I shouldn't have come. And Minato's like, you're so weird. The moment that Minato grabs the camera and is doing this little gesture here, bitch, please, What? At that point, I'm like, Tsuge, you have this boy. This cat boy is whipped for you. You have got him in the palm of your hand. You have tamed a tsundere, Tsuge. Do you know how hard that is? Do you know how some people in manga and anime work for seasons to tame the tsundere and fail, and you have achieved it within 8 episodes? Sir. Just, yes. Yes. I loved all this. He's surprisingly bold. He's like, when he said, I'm so glad I came, and then he stretches out, and Minato's like, is that a creative dance? I'm like, oh, sir, I don't know if dance is the right word for it, but it is a creative interpretation of something else that we can't describe on television. But yes. And the pictures he took of Minato, I mean, he's like, oh, these are the faces I make when I dance. It's like, I'm always a backup dancer, so they usually never focus on me. And he's like, I don't know much about dancing, but I thought your dancing was beautiful. Tsuge, you're saying all the right things. You're saying all the right things. I love it. And so Minato reveals that he got to the final round of a major audition, which is super nice. And Minato was like, oh, you're jumping the gun, giving me approval of my debut and everything. He's like, it's because you gave me advice. And then he's like, I noticed earlier that when he takes off his glasses, he's kind of hot. Tsuge is a catch. He's a catch. He doesn't realize it, but he's also a dork. I love him. He's great. Minato, you've struck gold because Tsuge is such a sweetheart. And if he's in love with you, he's definitely going to treat you like a good person. So then we have the day of the customer panel, and Adachi coming up to Kurosawa saying, happy birthday or something. I would say that. Again, there are parts of me that I'm like Tsuge, but then there's parts of me that's like, I would be like Adachi. I would say the same thing. Like, here, I guess happy birthday. Of course, Kurosawa thinks it's amazing. He thinks it's the best thing. And Adachi's like, maybe I could just use this power and not tell him about it, thinking that's okay. But the show's going to test us to tell us that that's not right and that's not something he should do. So they test the products, and that's when Tsuge shows up with Minato, who happens to know Rokaku. Now, I do think it's interesting that there is like a little tension between Rokaku and Minato. I'm curious about that. If we're going to touch base on it, might be good to know. But yeah, Tsuge's like, I brought this cat because y'all need somebody athletic. And Adachi's like, it's the meme where he's like, other men? Like, that's the meme where Adachi's like, I didn't know that Tsuge had other friends than just me, which is funny. And of course, as soon as Kurosawa sees Tsuge within 5 inches of Adachi, he just like crushes the toy. He's like, guess we're gonna have to recall that one. And I said it in the reaction, but Minato revealing how flexible he is on that balance beam. Y'all. I like that Tsuge's like, I'm not that flexible. And again, I'm like, can relate. He's like, yes, I suppose. I am Tsuge on that balance board. Although I do not have rock hard abs like Tsuge. Absolutely not. I have Adachi's marshmallow midsection for sure. Although Minato's like, hell yeah, he's got rock hard abs. If they had a beach episode and Tsuge was out in like full on swim gear and stuff, Minato would probably be like, yes, sir. Like there are times I relate to Tsuge and times I relate to Adachi. And then Kurosawa, like, because Kurosawa has been keeping his body up for Adachi, and Tsuge has been keeping his body up for Minato, and these short potential semeis are like, what do we do? Or ukes. He's like, oh, he's my best friend, I invited him. And Kurosawa's like, thank you for coming. Kurosawa is like, he's so easily jealous. I love it. But the thing about it is he's jealous and possessive, but in a very human, professional, real way, right? Because I can be jealous. And I feel like sometimes I would get possessive of somebody in a relationship because I would get jealous. But you have to look at it from a human perspective. Like, you can't expect them to not have friends with other people, especially of the same gender. That's just, you can't expect that. You just can't. I have other friends that are guys, and some of them are heterosexual. And so if I was dating someone, I would still want to hang out with that guy friend sometimes. That's fine. You can have platonic friends that are of the opposite sex. It's okay. And so, I think Kurosawa handles it fine, but you can understand why he would be nervous, because Adachi hasn't been forward about their relationship, especially out in public. So he's still kind of confused over, does Adachi actually like me? Is he just going along with what I said? And that's very relatable, because I've had that feeling too. I told some of my friends, I was like, I'm not asking people out anymore, because I've had the situation where I've asked someone out to date, but then I've felt like they just said yes to be nice. And then shortly thereafter, they're like, well, actually, no, I don't want to. And I'm very much like, if you agree to date me, I'm in. I'm all in. I'm like, okay, cool, then we're dating. But if you just were leading me on because you felt sorry for me, or you felt like, you needed to be nice, I don't want that. Just say no. I'd rather be rejected than to be questioning whether or not you're serious about dating, And so Adachi wonders whether he should say how he should introduce Kurosawa to Tsuge. And I wish he'd done the flowers where he's like, he's our top salesman and my boyfriend. But of course, Adachi is not ready for that yet. He's like, oh no, this is my colleague, which they are in public. And Kurosawa takes it very well. He's like, oh, I hope he doesn't cause too much trouble at the office. And Kurosawa basically just talks up Adachi, but kind of, the way he says, he's sensitive to emotional subtleties that others would miss. Like, he brings up some details like, I've noticed these things about Adachi because I'm close to him, and I know this because we're very close. And Adachi's like, I like that Tsuge's like, what a curious opinion. Like, this is I like that Tsuge shows he's not attracted to Kurosawa at all, because he's like, here's this odd guy that likes Adachi. Interesting. Everybody else is fawning over Kurosawa and falling head over heels. And Tsuge's like, he's like, meh. He's like, not my type, but okay, whatever. That's so fascinating to me. So fascinating. So yeah, and then the damn QR codes. So then Minato is like, oh yeah, we know each other. We were at the same dance club in college. And he's like, Minato's amazing. He still performs as a backup dancer for singers sometimes. And he's like, oh, you don't need to mention that. So it feels like it feels like any negative feelings about them are from Minato's perspective and not Rokaku's. So, I don't know if Minato liked Rokaku at one point and then realized the feeling wasn't mutual, or Rokaku doesn't seem like Minato's type though, but we don't really know what Minato's type is. So that's interesting. And Tsuge's like, I had no idea one of his acquaintances worked at this company. Which it doesn't seem like Minato knew as well. So he's like, I wonder if something happened. He's like, I can't help it. Love has made a fool of me too. So in that moment, Adachi's like, wait, you heard that I was listening to you? And he's like, yes, apparently we can speak telepathically. Now the question is there going to be a moment later on? Because Adachi's theory is that when he has sex, he's not going to be able to hear thoughts anymore. You're going to lose your powers. So the question is there going to be a moment where he goes to listen to Tsuge's thoughts and Tsuge can't hear them anymore? And Adachi's going to be like, you've had sex. And he's like, how do you know? And he's like, because you're not listening to me anymore. And vice versa. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen. But yeah, so I love this conversation that these two have. And of course, Kurosawa overhears and hears them having a telepathic. Now, I guess maybe he walked away before they said, let's talk telepathically to one another. Maybe he walked away discouraged before that happens. That seems like that was the case. But I was so afraid that this series was going to give us the miscommunication of Kurosawa being like, Adachi loves Tsuge and he doesn't want to be with me and all of this bullshit. But no, Kurosawa has been known to confront Adachi and just ask him forthright. And I like the way the show kind of foreshadowed that by having him confess first, being like, no, I'm bold. I'm going to ask you things. And if this is a problem, I want to know. And then it puts the ball in Adachi's court. And Adachi, as we have, shown throughout the series, is someone that does not shy away from communication. When he's like, no, I want to clear the air. I want to get this out of the way. I don't want this to be a thing. And he kind of act like him and Kurosawa balance each other out really, really well. So they have this conversation, Adachi and Tsuge do, about, they have this telepathic conversation. And Tsuge's like, yeah, I love Minato. I'm afraid he'd hate me if I told him the truth. And Adachi's like, you should be more confident in yourself. He's like, if Minato came with you, that means that he likes you. So you should be okay with telling him. Now, the question is Minato going to have the same reaction as Kurosawa? I don't know. Kurosawa is so head over heels. Kurosawa and Tsuge are similar in the sense that they are both head over heels for their potential and current partners. So Kurosawa was fine with knowing about the telepathy because he was like, oh my gosh, you can hear me. That means we can be intimate and whatever. My fear is Minato going to freak out like Adachi would? Because Minato and Adachi seem kind of similar. So is Minato going to freak out if Tsuge tells him? And is he going to be weirded out? That I'm worried about. So I don't know how that's going to go. We're going to have to see. So we'll just have to see about that. We'll just have to see. So yeah. And so he's like, I've never seen Tsuge so anxious before. But he's like, I'm keeping secrets from Kurosawa and I should tell him, but I'm afraid he'd run away from me. When did I fall so hard for him? So yeah, and I like that Adachi smiles at him being like, thanks for helping me. And he's like, oh, no problem. Like, he's like, we're both in the same boat. So Kurosawa was there listening to them have a telepathic conversation with each other the whole time. I'm like, sir, did you not think something was weird when they were just standing there not talking? Sir. I think maybe that helps him accept Adachi in that moment because I think that helps him accept him because he's like, when he says that they were having the telepathic conversation, although he hasn't said that Tsuge has the same ability yet. He hasn't said that. So I'm wondering if he'll talk about that next episode. I don't know. Regardless, I like that Kurosawa confronts him and he's like, do you like Tsuge or not? And he's like, no, we're just friends. And I like that Adachi doesn't beat around the bush. He's like, no, we're just friends. We've always known each other, but I have never liked him that way. I was just giving him relationship advice. I've never fallen in love with him. Like, I really appreciate that too, because there is often a subtext in not just BL, but all romance, that if you've been around somebody of the opposite sex or someone with BL, it's of the same sex. With other hetero romances, it's of the opposite sex. And with GL, it's of the same sex, obviously. But there's this tendency that depending on what the alignment is for the sexuality and the romance, that if you know anyone else that you could be potential partners with, there's the stigma of, have you had feelings for them in that series, right? I've had that happen so many times, and so many series act on that and they're like, yes, we have had feelings for them. I just got done reading a series for a video essay that I'm doing that made me about want to pull my hair out because that exact thing happened. And I was like, oh my God, this does exist in stories. People are like, stories don't have that. I'm like, no, they do sometimes and they're really bad. But I have noticed reading some BL that there is like the assumption by one of the love partners that, oh, you're around this person of the same sex as you. Do you love them or not? And they're like, no. And I like this series nixes that very early on. And they're like, no, just because I'm attracted to men, he's my best friend that's a man, does not mean that we have a thing or that I'm remotely attracted to them. No. Because I get that a lot in real life. You all know that there's bigotry in this world. I don't have to explain that. But I do get that sometimes where if I've had to explain to people that just because they like someone of the same sex does not mean they like you. I've had to have that conversation. And that's so you would think in 2025 we wouldn't have to have these conversations, but I've had to have those conversations with people being like, no, they're not attracted to you just because they like men. Oh my God, like, get your head out of your ass, you know, one of those moments. But right, it's so crazy, and I'm glad they nixed that right off the bat in this. And I like Adachi calling him a dummy. He's like, you really scared me. What are you doing? And then Kurosawa's love language is physical contact. He's just like with the hair on there, being like, I feel anxious around you. And I think Adachi gets the most, he gets the most oomph in his step. He gets the most gust of wind when he finds out that someone feels the same way he does, because he's been anxious about Kurosawa for a while. So him finding out Kurosawa feels the same way, like, that's Adachi's love language. When you can relate to him, he is on board. And I think that helps give him the motivation to come out and tell him that he has the powers of being a wizard. And when he says, he's like, I'm a wizard, but I'm a boring wizard. A boring one, though. That was so cute. He's like, I'm a boring wizard. He's like, sorry. He's like, but I'm a really boring wizard, though. That's so cute. And Kurosawa doesn't believe him at first until he proves that he can read his thoughts. And I think it's important that he establishes when he could start reading thoughts. He's like, I couldn't start reading thoughts till I was 30. So the moment on the bench, long before then, when Kurosawa first, recognized his feelings for Adachi, I think it was a comfort for Kurosawa knowing that Adachi could not sense that moment, that he couldn't read those thoughts, because that's a little private insight that I think Kurosawa wants to keep to himself and doesn't want specifically known, or he wants to be able to tell Adachi that himself. I think that makes more sense. I think that helps make Kurosawa feel okay about it, being like, oh, you just started hearing my thoughts at this moment. Okay. And then Adachi saying, this is the real me. This is who I am. I'm like, good. I love the light shining through the windows, all of this moment. Like, and Kurosawa having the flex of like getting down on his hands and knees and like having a moment to like process. I love that that's like a trait for him. And then he springs up and like explodes with dazzling sunlight. And Adachi's like, just, it's so cute. I love it. And he's like, the more you touch me, the more you know how I feel. That's when I was like, oh no, Adachi, you're not a touchy-feely person. So the idea of someone reading your thoughts may kind of creep you out. Kurosawa's like, you mean we can have something that's just between us and involves me touching you and you reading my thoughts? Like, Kurosawa's all on board. He's like, oh, we're going to make something out of this. Like, and I can't believe we got them to actually, he's like, it's so cute I can do this to him. He's like, I have something that nobody else can have. And him kissing him, y'all, I told you I sweat before. Oh, because you think at this point they should have kissed already. You would think at this point this should have already happened, but this was their first kiss. And then Kurosawa is freaking smooth, being like, did you get that? And I like that Adachi kind of short circuits in the moment. He can't hear anything. I love them using silence. There are no thoughts being processed. Nothing is being heard internally. It is just literally them having this moment of physical intimacy. You can't hear anything. I wonder if that's going to be a thing. Like whenever they are intimate, you can't hear things, which could, lead to other stuff happening. But yeah. And then Kurosawa is smooth. The touching, the pulling him close, like all of this. He knows what he is doing, sir. Oh. And then Adachi just like clutching him and embracing him. Bitch, please. Ah! 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 Rule of 8. Rule of 8. Rule of 8 has never led us wrong before. All of the feels. All of the feels. All of the feels. I love it. I love it to pieces. I'm so excited. And we have to wait a week until episode 9. Fine. I love this series so much. I'm not mad about waiting because I want to wait and hear everybody's comments for episodes 6 and 7 because that's where I am at recording. And I'm okay with waiting because I want to savor every possible moment that I can have with this series. I talked about it in the OP, but Anime Annie has hooked me up And apparently there was a series of chibi shorts that came with this series, and Anime Annie, who's a patron on Patreon, super amazing. They have translated for me before with Kuroko's Basketball, and they translated those shorts and compiled them together because they are a patron saint of BL. And they're going to have those ready for me. So when I get done with episode 12, I'll be able to react to those in the same reaction with episode 12. So I'm so excited. But I'm going to take my time. I'm going to wait and be patient because I want to savor this series for as long as I can. And we'll see about the manga afterwards. So anyway, I'm super excited to hear your thoughts down below. What you thought about this episode. Did it live up to the rule of 8 standard? Hopefully so. But if you enjoyed this video, please send me a comment down below. You can like, subscribe, all that jazz. But otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with episode 9, and we'll see what happens with Tsuge and Minato and Adachi and Kurosawa with episode 9 of Cherry Magic.